back to another edition of the Prepper Recon podcast. Our mission is to bring you great interviews with preppers from around the world so you can be better informed and better prepared for everything from a hurricane to the end of the world as we know it. This episode is brought to you by CampingSurvival.com. Whether your plan is to bug out or bug in, CampingSurvival.com has all of your preparedness needs, including bug-out bags, long-term storage food, water filters, gas masks, and first aid kits. Check them out online today at CampingSurvival.com. Be sure to enter coupon code PREPPERRECON for a 5% discount on your entire order. Today's guest is Charley Hogwood. Charley served 15 years in the U.S. Army and the Coast Guard. Charley is a preparedness educator, and he's the author of the new book, Mags, The People Part of Prepping. Charley, thanks for your service, and thanks for coming on today's show.
Hey, Mark. Thanks very much. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure. I'm glad to have you on. Charley and I met at the recent Life Changes Be Ready Preparedness Expo, and Charley bailed me out. He had some black bank line that I needed to get my Prepper Recon podcast banner sign hung up with. All I had was olive drab paracord. I think that would have probably been a real fashion faux pas, so that was a real lifesaver. So thanks again for that, Charley. And tell us about your new book.
Well, the new book is it's something that we stumbled into because when we go through the classes here at Prep, we found that people are always asking us, how do I team up with other people? How do I meet people? How do I talk to people? What should I worry about? And as we started looking into what information was available, we found that there really wasn't much out there. So we set out on a project to source out all this information, and we found out that we had so much that we had a book out of it. And at the end of the day, this book has managed to fill a gap that was wide open in the prepper library resource market, and we're blessed that people have been embracing it, and we've had some great feedback on it.
And can you tell us a little bit about your career in the military and how it might relate to preparedness?
Well, yeah, I started out in the U.S. Army. I was a cavalry scout, Recon scout. My job was to get out and see what was going on out in front of everybody else as a scout. And I started out in the U.S. over at Fort Knox, went on over to Germany, and spent a couple of years sneaking around on the east-west German border. Did a whole bunch of surveillance, studied what was going on the other side. Got into a number of international incidents, which are great stories for another time. One of them is Chernobyl. When Chernobyl went up, I was out on the east-west German border measuring radiation and actually detecting plenty of radiation coming over, and saw the collapse of all the food system, the produce, all the meat, everything. It had to be destroyed and we couldn't eat it. So that really kind of drove some points home to me. And then I came back to the U.S. and joined the National Guard, not the Coast Guard, and ended up participating in a number of very large disasters, Hurricane Andrew being one of the largest. I was down in the very middle of that and saw what happens when government breaks down, society breaks down, people are hungry, sewage is down, sanitation is a mess, water is not to be found, and people are hawking ice and supplies at gouging prices. And I realized that that's really close to home because I live in South Florida. And what I realized is in the military, there's a big difference between survival in the military and survival as a family on the outside. In the military, somebody always tells you where to go, what to bring, they give you everything you need, and they give you a place to sleep for the most part. That doesn't happen in survival, at the family level. Nobody's going to be there for you. And now that I'm out of the military and participating in our local emergency operations center, I'm the CERT team leader for our area, and I realized the absolute lack of responders. I believe there's like one responder for every 1,000 citizens on average. No one is coming in a major disaster, at least not right away. And it's really important to to embrace some preparedness, take care of your family until something does show up.
Seems to be a lot more people in the preparedness movement that have come from serving in the military. I think that a lot of that is because, like you said, you've seen what it looks like when things break down. And a lot of the people in America just suffer from normalcy bias, where all that stuff's just TV and movies and the news, and it could never ever happen here.
Yeah, the normalcy bias is a big problem, and when you combine that with risk homeostasis, which is that certain degree of danger you're willing to accept for yourself, that becomes a very dangerous situation. We identify this in the book. There's a lot of sociological, team dynamics and group conflict information that we talk about in the book. And we do go into depth in behavioral mimicry, risk homeostasis, the normalcy bias, and all of those things, because in order to understand your situation, you need to understand yourself, you need to understand those around you, and you need to understand that the situation will always dictate, your behavior and the behavior of those around you. And I've seen it firsthand, how people panic when they get into a relief line and they're baking in the sun and they can't find family and they're hungry and, tempers are flaring. And the best bet is to just not be involved in that. Just prepare yourself so you don't have to show up in that mess.
Sure, good advice. And your book really focuses a lot on the mutual assistance group. Can you give our audience a quick description of what that is? Because, we're always getting new people that are just waking up to preparedness, and a lot of these terms are foreign to them. And then even some folks that have been in preparedness for a while, it's good to get a sort of a refresher about the basics, because after all, preparedness is really all about the basics, isn't it?
The basics is the most important thing. Yes, a group is a very handy thing to have, and we can go into, and I'll explain what that is. But if everybody in every family is embracing a baseline, what we call a baseline level of preparedness, you'll be that much better off in a disaster. That way you're not really out struggling trying to find the resources that you need. When resources are hard to come by, you don't want to be out there in competition for them. Now, a mutual assistance group, really all it boils down to is just, it could be a couple of people, a family, it could be a neighborhood, it could be a large organized group, but it's really just a number of people that pledge, along with each other to help each other in a crisis. And now that crisis does not always have to be, the doomsday apocalypse, the mutant motorcycle marauders and all the big Hollywood, names that go along with it. A lot of times it's just about getting back to the way things were done by our grandparents in the earlier generation, to maybe one or two generations ago, where people just, they laid up some food so that they could look over life's disruptions, tornadoes and freezing, blizzards, hurricanes, all those kind of things. It was just normal back then. So, the most important thing about the mutual assistance group is really the sense of community, and that's what's going to foster your will to survive. And we found that it almost brings out that once you got people with you working together, it brings out some competitiveness, and it keeps people committed to each other. They don't want to, become lazy in their preps because they know that the others are counting on them. So there's a whole lot of psychological and community reasons that it's beneficial to find some people to work with. And
I guess some people could get together and form a really good mutual assistance group, and everything could be perfect during training. But I think sometimes when stress hits, maybe after the stuff hits the fan, some of the personalities might get a little less pleasant. Do you address dealing with that in your book?
We go into that quite a bit, and from a number of different angles. The goal of the book, and let me back up and describe what this book from an aerial view would be. This book is to be used by, if you're just a person trying to figure out how to survive alone with a family, it helps you understand who you are, what you want, and what you need to do to get started in your survival. It helps you to know where to look and how to speak to other people safely. It's also used by a group that's already up and running, whether you're a small community group or you're a large, organized, national size group or a constitutional group even, and maybe you're experiencing some social conflict, some team dysfunction. Maybe you're having a problem with meetings, you're having a problem with understanding how to do your exercise and training, or maybe you just see things that are becoming an issue for people working together. And we identify problem groups like cliques and the HOA syndrome and, things like that. So you can look at it as a textbook or a reference manual. This book is really approachable from several different angles and to help you solve. I've had people that'll tell me that, just for running a small business, it helps them to communicate with their employees. It's really strange. Communicating with their employees, getting their teams operating better, getting your outdoor people to understand the indoor people. So it's crossed some lines for what we do.
Oh, that's very good. A lot of the things in prepping do have that sort of dual usage. I mean, they're great for the apocalypse, but then they're handy now. We were talking a little bit before the show about both of our wives are big couponers, which is great because you're able to build up your long-term food storage on your regular grocery budget without having to pile in a lot more money into your regular grocery budget. So it's great for the apocalypse, but it's also good now because you're saving money.
Well, and that's what it is. It's all about planning, and if when it comes to food storage, the more planning you do, the less trips you have to make. The less trips you make, the less impulse buying you spend the money on. The less that you're wasting time and money. So when you come home after a long day, you don't want to pop over to the grocery store and just pick up that $80 2 plastic bags of food. You could walk into what we call affectionately our pantry is called the Doom Room, and you walk in there and it's like your own grocery store. I can whip up a meal without really worrying about anything else. And we save easy 50% all year on average, and often far more than that, just by, strategic shopping, only buying things that we'll eat, only buying things that have the longer shelf life. So it's a tremendous help to plan just a little bit. And you'll actually save time with planning as opposed to all these little instant trips that you've got to pop into the store for.
Very cool. And my group is my extended family. I'm very blessed to have a wide variety of skills stretched out in my extended family. We've got a lot of homesteading skills because they're all up in Kentucky, military experience, medical skills, and as far as being awake, they range anywhere from curious to somewhat expectant of some sort of a economic collapse. And nobody is completely in denial of the possibility. So I think that I'm really, really blessed to have those people in my family. Do extended families make a good group dynamic? I mean, after all, they usually have some experience with coexisting, at least among the siblings, probably.
Yes, family does make a great group. But also, as many people are going to find out next week when it comes to Thanksgiving, getting people into tight spaces and trying to accomplish a task is, it's going to be like close quarters combat. People are just, so it takes a little getting used to. But here's the reason I think a lot of that happens. A lot of it is because there's already maybe some baggage among the family members. Mm-hmm. And family members are not usually as easy to, and I want to use the word control, but to direct, to get a task done, because they don't really want to listen to each other. So sometimes family members are harder to motivate to get something done than would be people that are not family members. So as long as the family members are used to working together, they can actually use a lot of the things that we identified in the book to solve some of those team dynamic problems. It can be very effective because blood usually protects blood, much better than strangers. And there's been story after story out there of groups of refugees who have been families and work together. And, you can usually count on family, even though they're a little bit harder to get along with sometimes. So, training and communication are really the biggest things that you're going to find that are going to help solve those problems. And, I think that's really, you've just got to focus on building relationships. You'll start to see in the book that there's a sphere, almost a web of connections, and they're really based on selecting the right people, building the right relationships, and then protecting those relationships through training and practice together on common tasks.
And then for folks that maybe aren't in quite the position that I am, and they need to try to get out and try to seek out a mutual assistance group or try to form one from scratch, how do they balance operational security with finding the people that would be good matches for their group?
Well, operational security is a very important thing, and you'll hear some people come out and try to say that it's not, and you'll hear some people say that I'm afraid to talk to anybody. So there's a wide range of feeling on the topic. At the end of the day, the best place to go look for somebody who is interested in the things that you are is go to the places that you would find interesting. Places that a self-reliant type of person may hang out. And that could be, join a CERT group. That's a good place to start meeting people in your local community, and you'll start to open up an awful lot of doors that way. You can go to a survival class. For example, we have 40 different survival classes and homesteading classes. And, you'll start to meet people that have similar thinking by going there. Churches are a good place, farmers markets, green markets, and just volunteering down at your emergency operations center or, as a volunteer firefighter or something like that. Those things are a lot of help. You can meet people on meetup.com platforms and, online, but you got to be really careful and apply all the stuff that you would normally do to your online safety. The key to conversations is just have a conversation. If it's a brand new person out in public and you'd like to, maybe get to know them, just say, hey, did you see that thing that happened in the Los Angeles airport last week? What do you think about TSA? How'd they handle that? And if based on that person's reaction, you'll then know, should you pursue that conversation or should you say, okay, I'm walking away from that one? Because it's a lot easier to avoid somebody or reject somebody before you even invite them in than it is to get rid of them later on once they're in the group. Remember that TV show back in the 60s, Lost in Space, with the doctor who was always a pain in everybody's butt, but they're stuck on the spaceship together and you can't get rid of them. So
that's a good analogy.
It just came to me. But I mean, really, that's what it is. It's easier to not take people along than it is to, get rid of them later on. Besides, if you go to get rid of them later on, what kind of safety problem is that going to cause you for OPSEC and, physical security? You kick somebody out, now they know your secrets, they know where you are, they know what your security is. When you're building a relationship in survival, you really kind of need to look at it as if you're courting someone. It's a survival marriage. And the difference here is, if the survival marriage goes sour and you split up, does the other person take some of your stuff or all of your stuff, or do they all gang up and take all of your stuff? So survival divorces can get very messy. It's just a lot easier to slowly build those relationships now while we have some time left to do that.
And I suppose every group needs some type of leadership structure. Would we be better off with a sort of a military type hierarchy or more of a democratic process?
Every group is going to be a little bit different. And, we've spoken with a lot of groups in our research. We meet a lot of people in our business, and we interviewed a lot of people as we were putting the book together. And one of the things that we found is leadership really is critical. The reason for that is because if you don't have leadership, you've got people working in too many different directions, and they're really not accomplishing any goals. So the leadership is what's going to be the glue that's going to kind of guide everybody towards a common goal. We go into goals and values and being a good candidate and all of those other things in the book extensively. This is a step-by-step type of thing here. And when it comes to leadership, there's a couple of different kinds you can look at. You could have a single leader group, you could have a council or a committee group, or you could have a consensus type of leadership. Now, consensus is really just a commune thing where everybody has a vote, and really that's going to end up with, anarchy, because there's nobody who's actually going to put direction to it. If you're just a family, maybe the family leader is the single leader approach. But the single leader in a small group needs to understand what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are. And there may come a time where somebody else in the family or the group is stronger in a particular area, and that leader may want to go ahead and pass off the authority to someone else to make some decisions. The council is a great system that a lot of groups use if they have the manpower and they have all the diversity of labor identified, like your gardening, your tactical, your medical, your home maintenance or whatever, all the different fields of duty that need to be done are represented in a council. And then the council gets together and speaks on behalf of everybody that falls under their department, if you will. And then they make decisions on how things will work. And that they work out really well. Sometimes the council advises a single leader. So in the book, we lay out all of this information so people can then select what leadership source works for them the best. Because there's a really big difference between convincing somebody to do something and coercing them to do something. And leadership is about motivation, convincing, and getting people to buy into the mission. As long as people buy into the mission, then the leader is doing his job, and then things are going to work out much better.
And then I guess what kind of goes along with that question is, should we have clear written out rules to let everyone know what's going to be expected of them prior to when the stuff hits the fan?
We think so. In the book, we have a chapter on building a foundation. And in that chapter, we talk about a mission statement. We talk about writing your own constitution. We talk about team charters and things of all this nature. And some people will maybe roll their eyes and say, why do I need all that stuff? I don't need all that to go shoot zombies and, whatever. And that may be. If you're a small group and a family, maybe you don't need to write out all your goals, your values, your objectives, and the roles and responsibilities. That's fine. But what's going to happen is, as you get further into a big grid down situation, a long-term outage of some sort, the situation, like we talked about earlier, is going to dictate behavior, and people's morals and the moral compass, their behaviors are all going to adapt to the situation. If you don't write down who you are as a group, what your goals are as a group, you're going to find that you've strayed off a course, and later on you're going to say, well, we're all dysfunctional. I don't understand why we're always fighting. I don't understand why things aren't working. It should be simple. We all move. If you had that all written down, what it was you were trying to accomplish, you could refer back to those documents as an anchor. You could say, you know what, guys, here's where we went wrong. This is what we stood for. This is what we said we were going to do. Look at us now. Let's go back to that anchor point. Let's get back on track again, and let's see if we can't get this thing rolling again. And with that, we've provided all the examples of what can go wrong and the solutions to fix all those problems at the same time. So that's why we feel that's so important.
And what's the perfect size for a mutual assistance group?
There's really not a perfect size. But I'll tell you this, if there's only two of you and one of you gets incapacitated, the other one is going to be doing the litany of daily tasks and caring for you. If there's three people, there's always going to be a third wheel. Think about it in the terms of relationships. 3 people, one's always left out. 4 people always polarizes to 2 and 2. It causes a voting lock, and there's all kinds of problems with that. Also, if you only have 2 people, it's like 2 people get in trouble. It's like toddlers. Leave 2 toddlers unattended and see what kind of trouble they can cause. But as you get into like 5, 6, 7, 8 people, you start to really build a team. And that can be a very effective thing. Now, once you get in and start having meetings and stuff, and you get more than 9 to 12 people all sitting in one room, you're going to start introducing background noise and chatter in the back, and people, feeling left out because they can't get what they want into the meetings and stuff. So there's nothing wrong with going all the way up to hundreds of people, and there are many groups that are hundreds of people strong, and they're very effective. But once they get to those larger sizes, they start to send representatives to meetings. They start, putting people out to the outsides and letting them be represented and not have to go and sit in these long, boring meetings that might only pertain to them, maybe 2 or 3, 4 or 5 minutes, which we all know, being in the corporate world, meetings, affect us, very little, but we sit there for quite a while. So as far as the size of group, if you're very careful and select the people around you that will work with you, that's what size your group is going to be. Now, there's something that we did find. We stumbled into this in our research, and we call it the multiplication factor. If you start out with 3 people, let's say you, me, and we have another friend that we're all pledged that we're going to be a group together, and we all show up with 2, 3, 4 people each together, we could end up with 25 different people all of a sudden. So now we got a 3-man group that is now a 25-person group with dogs and cats and everything else. Elderly, neighbors, people that showed up that, well, we couldn't leave them behind. We had to bring them. And then you got people that don't show up because of personal reasons, moral or ethical, or maybe they got lost to the disaster or just delayed. So based on that multiplication factor, we just figured add about a 10%, addition of supplies to account for that. I know we're getting into some of the nitty gritty here, but the reality is if you think there's only 3 of you, there's probably 25 of you. So take that into account. And all of those people need to be, preferably vetted or hopefully at least willing to participate in a group. Now, you mentioned your extended family, that mostly they're on board. But I would be willing to gesture that there's going to be a couple of spouses. There's going to be maybe some children that think it's kind of silly or don't want to participate or don't want to even, maybe just don't want to know about it because it scares them. Those are the people that are, maybe going to cause some conflict, when the group activates in tight spaces.
And you just mentioned vetting members. How do we effectively vet new members? And is there anything we should consider in getting a new member off to a good start?
The vetting of a new member and introducing members to the group is one of the most important things that you will do in your survival group experience. And we go into that in a very long chapter in the book. We explain an awful lot of stuff in there about how to find the people, how to talk to them, how to, make sure, that they are willing to participate, the questions to ask them, the questions to ask yourself before you even find them. And once you've identified your own group goals, your personal goals and values, you need to make sure those other people match those goals and values, and you want to make sure that they have the skills. One of the biggest problems that groups have is the 80-20 rule still applies. That's 20% of the people always do 80% of the work. Even in the largest, most organized groups, apathy is one of the biggest problems because a lot of people show up and they want to treat the group as a social gathering. They don't want to, maybe take it seriously for some of the training or maybe some of the classes or skill exchanges and things like that. Or, the group has identified how long they want to survive or what the disaster is they want to prepare for. So they have all started, collecting and accumulating all their supplies, and this other member doesn't do it because, well, they're going on vacation again this year, or they found that big plasma's on sale next Friday. So, but when it comes time to, come to the meetings, they're like, well, I just can't afford to get my food together, or I'm not participating in meetings because I got, sports with the kids and all these other things, which are all valid reasons. But if they're always a problem, if they're always some other reason not to show up, then that person's not really committed to the group.
And I think a lot of people think that they're going to buy that survival seed vault and start their garden the day after the stuff hits the fan.
Yeah.
Is that realistic, or is there a little bit of a learning curve with some of this stuff?
Everybody that's listening that has thrown a seed in the ground and looked for a carrot, is probably rolling on the floor laughing right now at the thought that you could just plant a seed vault and you're ready to go. Heirloom seed vaults are a great thing to have. I strongly recommend it. In our 3.5-hour food storage class, we go into the tiered food storage system that we developed, and part of that is the gardening. And if you've had no experience in gardening and you're just going to pull that thing out of the pantry or out of the freezer or wherever you've got it, and please don't freeze your seeds unless you know that they've been reduced to the right moisture or you'll kill them, by the way. But the learning curve is straight up on gardening. And you should be practicing your gardening year round, and all of your, food production. You should be trying to do that now so that you're familiar with it before the time comes.
And do you guys offer any education through Ready Go Prep for people that want to start developing those skills?
Yes, we do. Like I said, we have about 40 different classes on homesteading. And we mix the genres of homesteading, pioneering, tactical, urban, and wilderness survival and kind of put them all together into a realistic situation. If you're a family that wants to learn how to get through everything from a job loss, a medical injury that's keeping you out of work, all the way up to, the full-blown apocalypse. We teach the skills on how to do that. And those are going to be, your food storage, your food production, your food preservation, your water location and purification classes, all the way on out to just how to select places outdoors to hold up. And by the way, in the book, that book is also made to be thrown into a backpack. And if you take off running in a disaster, it gives you all the things to look for a hasty hold-up spot. So if you're looking for a retreat location, you just you can refer to all the categories in the book, and it'll tell you what to look for, in checklist format for critical thinking for you to select all those places to stay.
Very cool. And your classes, they're held down here in sunny South Florida, or is it gonna soon be something that we'll be able to get over the internet?
Well, we do classes here in South Florida, and we're in the process now of producing our classes and getting them out online. So we haven't released them yet. We've had a lot of demand for it, and actually the MAGS class is the first one that we're in production on. We're going to release that, and hopefully that'll come out pretty soon, and the book will be a textbook for the class. But we've got a number of other classes that we've had people in faraway areas that can't get down here to see us. They can get online and take them. But we also travel. We have people that will fly us to different places. We come out, we evaluate your personal situation, your location. We develop a package for you, and we can go through everything from a one-day class out to a week of classes and help you just get comfortable. There's a lot of people that are just leaving the city, moving out to the farm, or moving out, to a rural area and have no idea where to even start. And that's where we come in. We make it very simple.
Very cool. We'll get you back on the show when the online classes are all ready to go, so we can announce that and let the people know a little bit more about them. And of course, we'll have links in today's show notes to purchase MAGS, the people side of prepping, through Amazon. We'll also have a link to Ready Go Prep. But for the folks listening on Stitcher, iTunes, and YouTube, can you just tell them where they can find you?
Absolutely. Find us at www.readygoprep.com, and everything links from there. We're on all of the social media. Courtney has a very solid package on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. We're at Ready Go Prep on all of those. On Twitter, we're at Shoestring Prep. That's our handle on there, but everything else is Ready Go Prep. And we even have a YouTube channel where we've got a few videos out now to help people with their Mylar bagging, some of the food storage stuff. We did some outdoor stuff like coconuts and how to open up raw coconuts and stuff like that. And it's kind of fun. And you can shoot us an email at info@readygoprep.com, and we'll get right back to you. And also the book is on Amazon, and it's on Kindle. And if you buy the book on Amazon and you have a Kindle, you can get they have a book matching program where you'll get the Kindle version of the book at a steep discount as a companion.
And it's almost Christmas, so you can buy the physical book to give as a gift and get the match book and put that in the Kindle and have it for yourself. So sort of a twofer there, and this is a great season for that. And everybody's going to get somebody something for Christmas. And it's usually something that's absolutely worthless. So this year, get everybody something that's prepper related. And
I just had a guy call me up, and he said, "I want to give your book out to all my friends." And we got him set up for a box of books. And he said, all of my assistants, my mutual assistant group friends, my buddies, my direct buddies are going to be with me anyway. I want them to all have a book. And if you're so inclined, and I'll humbly say that if you would like to order it direct from our website at Ready Go Prep, I'll even send you a personally autographed copy. And that's something that's the gift that we'll keep on giving, because it's a lifestyle, it's a mind changer, and it'll help open people's eyes.
Very good. Charley Hogwood, thanks again for coming on the show.
I appreciate it. It's always a blast, Mark. I had a good time. Hope to do it again soon.
Absolutely. Hey, Prepper Recon fans, I just published my new book, American Exit Strategy, Book 1 of the Economic Collapse Chronicles. Liberty-minded individuals who believe in the Constitution will find this near-future dystopian novel to be right up their alley. Those who are looking to be more informed about the potential threats to America's financial stability will learn what to watch for and how to prepare themselves for an economic collapse. In Book 1, America is on the cusp of financial annihilation. Matt and Karen Baer face the challenges of Main Street during a full-scale financial meltdown. Government borrowing and monetary creation have reached their limits. When funds are no longer available for government programs, widespread civil unrest erupts across the country. Matt and Karen are forced to move to a more remote location, and their level of preparedness is revealed as being much less adequate than they believed prior to the crisis. Meanwhile, Paul Randall, a third-party presidential candidate, arises to push back against the welfare and warfare spending that have bankrupted our country. While he's gained expansive acceptance across the country, the fight has just begun. Paul Randall proposes a plan to mitigate the coming hyperinflationary collapse, which is a mathematical certainty. His plan is known as the American Exit Strategy. American Exit Strategy uses survival fiction to take an in-depth look at the real-life politics and economics behind the issues that are likely to trigger a currency collapse or financial meltdown in the near future. American Exit Strategy is a work of fiction until it becomes history. Go to AmericanExitStrategy.com today to learn more or purchase your copy for Kindle in PDF format or paperback. Happy prepping.